was amazingly quiet.
Okay, I think we're all connected. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of The Daily Sieve. Really, I was saying before, slightly experimental in the sense that I've got two guests, not just one guest, but we seem to be all good on the tech side, which is the most important. I'm really excited to just to catch up and hear from Marianne and Caroline all about what they've been up to with the Valuable 500, because it's been a little while since we chatted on the Open Inclusion podcast. But I think first of all, for anyone that's maybe not come across the details, it's quite unlikely, but anyone that's not come across the details of Valuable 500, Caroline, can you just start with a sort of potted background to, a bit about you and Valuable 500, and we'll just go in deeper from where you kick us off there.
Well, there's nothing ever potted about me, so as you well know.
The floor is yours.
But there's nothing potted about me. I'm really learning that I have to use brevity more, it zooms, so I'll try. The Valuable 500 was launched in Davos in 2019 when we made history by taking the main stage at the World Economic Forum, having disability and business discussed with 5 of the world's most prominent leaders. And actually, it was the greatest kickstart for this campaign, whose entire ambition was to get 500 of the world's biggest brands and their CEOs to put disability on their leadership agenda. Now, that was the campaign intention. We believe that leaders make choices and choices create culture. We believe that inclusive business creates inclusive society. And we believe that the inequality crisis facing people with disabilities cannot be resolved without business. And the only way that we could meaningfully really engage business is by having their leadership. And that's what the Valuable 500 set out to do. Now, where we are, when we returned back to Davos in January, was with 240 global brands and their CEOs. But now we have 280, which represents over, I think it's 4 trillion, 11 million employees, 24 countries, 46 sectors. And this campaign has now turned into a movement, because the exciting part of it is all of those companies committed, the CEO had to put disability into a leadership conversation, make a leadership action, and communicate that, right? That's the exciting part. But the best part of it is, this is now the only global CEO community which is revolutionizing disability inclusion through leadership and opportunity. And there's going to be a second stage where we're going to get that community activated so that they will be able to drive the change within their organizations and within the business community. So from a campaign to a movement, we have 220 more companies to go. But I think we're very proud, Marianne, right? I mean, who would have thought we're crazy?
Yeah, I mean, anyone who's encouraged one CEO to try and do anything will know how hard work it's been. It was amazing getting to the end of the first year and looking back at our impact report. And for instance, looking at Caroline, how many events did you speak at? Like over 70? In a year?
No, 70 in 1 week. It was like
how many countries? It was
200. Yeah, it was nearly
very busy.
But it was fantastic, and I think it's been brilliant to see the different impacts that it's had for different organisations. So, for instance, Danske Bank, who was there the first week we launched, set up their first disability resource network. They've launched their own internal toolkits. We've seen people invest in insights. We've seen people invest in, digital audits. It's been amazing to see those little tangible differences and to get the feedback from people that work for these organizations. So I think it's exceeded our initial expectations, don't you think?
It sounds like it. Marianne, could you just give a little bit about sort of you and how you became to get involved in Valuable 500?
Yeah, well, again, I'm going to try and be brief, but I have a lot of personal experience with disability, and my background is in design and branding. And I'm a real passionate believer in inclusive design. And when you think about how much we talk, the world of media and branding and design especially, about user centricity, data, customer centricity, customer need, user experience, I became increasingly frustrated that the disabled perspective was never a part of that. And I'm an avid believer that in order to innovate, you need exceptional needs and insights at the table. So Caroline and I met. It was a beautiful moment. And
I'm going to say it was
belief that it was mainstream business and mainstream brands that now need to be doing this. Yeah. And you know what, I think at the beginning of, I'm probably jumping into the present. Sorry, Martin, if I am jumping, but I think
that's fine.
At the beginning of this year, after we went back to Davos and launched our halfway report, obviously then the coronavirus started to hit, and we were kind of concerned about what that might mean for us as a movement, because, you know, Mobile World Congress was cancelled, a lot of our speaking and events were cancelled. Yeah. But actually, it's been a fascinating expose on how much business should be doing and how much it's going to benefit everyone if you get accessibility right. And it's been so interesting to see that those businesses that had invested in removing barriers and had promoted accessibility are now weathering this challenge in a way that previously hadn't, or not. Yeah. Like Primark's not turned a profit in how many months? And they don't, and for various reasons, they don't have online shopping. But it's been so interesting to see accessibility be proven as a business imperative and a social imperative now. But also, it's been interesting, as Caroline will probably say, when we've seen the reception that CEOs have had, we thought that they might say, you know, we've got coronavirus to worry about. We're not going to think about disability. But actually, they said, oh my goodness, okay, we get it. Help us.
Yeah. Help.
So yeah, and I know disabilities. The topic of disability has been very kind of complex over the last couple of months because we've looked at human rights and challenges around that. But oh my goodness, very interesting.
It seems to me that, you know, when you look at the healthcare and the social care within coronavirus, there are obviously a lot of causes for concern. And if that, you know, falls apart, it's sort of the foundations of disabled people working and being active consumers and just generally participants in society. But I think we're all very on the same page that by getting businesses to embrace inclusion, it has the power to massively shift and improve the lives of disabled people. So with the fact that businesses are getting it more, and with the fact that within Corona, you said they're also seeing the need to press on, if you like, have you seen any ways that the business community can still help with the health and social concerns, or do you feel there is still a delineation between those two parts?
Well, I have to say, one of the things that I have been going on about for a long time is when people are valued, their needs are not overlooked. Yeah. And I really believe this oxymoron of the largest marginalized group in the world, which is the 1.3 billion people who have a disability, have not been valued. And when they are not valued, we can attach or overlook or attach words that demean or diminish. And there needs to be a complete societal reset about the value of people with disabilities and their families to society, to business, to everything. And what we believe is key is that business values. When business values, society values. Okay, so that's how we saw this. But listen, health is business. You know, of our lived experience, our daily life is touched by business. So when business just see disability as vulnerable or dependent or a medical issue, or even just inspirational, we're not seeing the value of the human life and the ability of that life to contribute. So what I believe we all probably agree is that business's role is, first of all, to change that mindset and see the value of the family, somebody with a disability, as a supplier, as a customer, as talent, as a member of the community in their philanthropy. Because if they did that, if that mindset shifted and they brought disability inclusion and integrated it within the business like they do with any other inclusion issue, then we have some chance, if this was ever to happen again, that we would never hear the gross stories that we're hearing, or the overlooking of people with disabilities and their families' needs. And some of the things that we cannot believe that we've heard said in the last, like, I can't believe I've heard things said in the last 3 or 4 months that I thought were in our past. Why are we starting to go back to that narrative again? The narrative of just vulnerable, Martin, to your point, not valuable as well. Like, what is that about? And so I think business's role is so important. There are no more excuses now. We've seen the business has the ability to change. We've seen a system willing to adapt, willing to be flexible, willing to be agile. So no more excuses as we reset this system. Business needs to be accountable. End of.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Elizabeth Jackson, who you'd have heard of probably, Martin, who are also known as the girl with the purple cane, is an American disability activist. She tried for years to get J. Crew to stock walking canes as part of their accessories range, and they wouldn't. So she's a big believer in integration of disability into the mainstream. And she put this really interesting post on her social media the other day where she talks about the cultural model. So if we move from the medical model to the social model to the cultural model of disability, it starts to show how this should be pervading every part of business. So this is about the people that you hire, the culture you create, because this isn't about siloed groups of people. This is about everyone understanding within an organization what their role is. Think about sustainability and mimic it that way, in that, yes, as a business, you need to be hiring the right people, creating the right culture. You need to make sure that that culture invests in the customer experience so that that's as accessible as possible, so that you create a wider societal culture of inclusion. And there are different parts of meeting those needs, I think. So business governs our world more than government, more than anything else. And so you have to understand how, as a business, you are meeting the needs of your customers, but also what are the societal needs. So what's been really lovely is not only have we been able to support businesses through their journey to become more inclusive across their supply chain, but we've also had businesses come forward and say, we hear these discussions, we hear that this is now getting down to eugenics. We want to support those people that actually are vulnerable. And so, for instance, my sister is vulnerable. She has a disability and she does need support. And she has relied on carers that have been going into care for her every day and risking their lives for the last couple of months. She's run by a charity called Stability, her care centre, and they rely on charitable donations. So yes, it's fine to be giving that support from a CSR perspective, but that's not the only place it should exist. It has to run through every area of your business.
And can I also say, the fact that Seeability is a charity, the fact that so much disability services are provided from charity shows the gap that the state is not even filling in the first place. Exactly. It's just this extraordinary gap that charity has had to fill. And it's really important. But regardless of having a disability, every life is valuable. Every single life is valuable, has something to contribute and to offer, and nobody has the right to decide whose life is more or less important.
Right. And that's what I think is so interesting, is when it comes back to, because it's almost impossible now to have this conversation without someone pressing you for the business case and the stats and what does this mean for the bottom line. And someone said,
my next question,
someone said it was really funny because they were like, no one asks the business case for selling to white men. So why are we asking for the business case of treating people fairly?
So when we, because obviously we all get the important stats, like there's a lot of disabled people, it's a big spending power, the 1.3 billion, the 8 trillion, like all that stuff has a really important part in getting the ear maybe of businesses. But do you think that the pure economics can't go far enough, because there are those points you're just saying that there are other factors that we don't measure economically?
No, and I think Marianne and I would agree. Marianne, when we designed the brand, right in the middle of the valuable 500 brand is a heart. No, we were challenged, weren't we, Marianne, about that, going, that's not corporate enough. And we were like, are you kidding me? It's the intersection of business and humanity. This is about stats and story. This is about humanly conscious business.
And they can do it. Like we talk, one of the things I sometimes mention is the fact that in 2019, according to the UK Vegan Society, there were roughly like 139,000 vegans in the UK. And who's been at it? Waitrose, Marks and Spencer's. Almost every retailer has thought about looking at vegan alternatives. But then when you challenge them to think about the 13 million disabled people, and it's not
149 billion.
Right. Well, it's so hard also to quantify it when you think about just the spending power of people with disabilities, because when you think about friends and family, that makes up 54% of people. And yet actually then, I don't even want to talk about the purple pound, because this is about removing barriers so that you can meet the needs of as many people as possible for as long within our lifespans as possible. So that's why the banking sector gets it, because of the length of a customer lifespan. But the Interbrand's top global brands, the highest value brands, are those that really work at accessibility, like Apple and Microsoft and Netflix and Amazon. This suddenly then becomes less about disabled people and more about edge case users and making things simpler for everyone. So it's almost harder to quantify what it is. The best way to look at it is just to look at the correlation between brand and business value and accessibility and investment in that area.
So,
well, there's one thing that's really important that Marianne, she just mentioned these lists of brands, okay? And I just want to come back to the Valuable 500 for a second. Our kind of niche area is CEOs, okay? Because we know that CEOs really do create that culture, okay? So let's just look at Steve Jobs for a second. I mean, we talk about Apple as an extraordinary brand that has inclusive or universal design built into its DNA. It is like of no coincidence, it's one of the most successful brands in the world, the first business to tip $1 trillion. And Steve Jobs, whether he was difficult or not, really believed in creating beautiful products for everyone.
For everybody,
See, that's not for disability, for everyone. What we're saying to business right now, they're terrified. Their growth is really constricted. The insights that people with disabilities and their lived experience can give for innovation around technology and around our physical environment. We can't touch doors anymore. Well, automatic doors, we're going to need that. That's a perfect example. So what our question to business is, we're no longer going to make the business case. This is now a risk for you. This is a risk.
And the context of COVID is perfect, because we have all experienced mass exclusion. We have all experienced what it's like to have accessibility problems and to be situationally or temporarily disabled. So yeah, totally agree. And that you've seen the risk. We're living through the risk. We're living through the risk at the moment.
Like future-proofing your business for when this happens again. And how can you know what's going to happen? So getting the lived experience of people with a different viewpoint, a different life, that's how you future-proof your business. That's how you're going to deal with an upcoming crisis. And that's also how you're going to build growth and innovation.
Yeah.
When you talked about the brands that are looking to the longer term, I was wondering, when we looked at the health and social care elements, which are more political, they're more governmental decided, maybe the difficulty or the problem is that politics is very short term. It's 5-year election cycles. But equally, I think back to that earlier point, that the more businesses change, the more society changes, where the government will end up having to change politics and policies to include everyone, because that's what voters will want. The same way that's what consumers of brands, products will want as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So we got a couple of sort of comments. First of all, Gavin said, heck yes, great guests. Hello, Gavin. Good to see you today. And Christopher, I love these lunchtime interviews. And then Gavin has asked so many questions. Firstly, well done on this amazing initiative. Question one, in a world of investors in people and disability confident and so many other initiatives, how do we keep holding CEOs' feet to the flames to ensure they fulfill on their pledges?
I wonder, is that the Gavin that we know so well? You know what? First of all, these are 3 accountabilities that we see. One is you're going to hold people. Media, this is going to hold people to account. Because the first phase of the Valuable 500, each CEO had to give their signature and they had to post their commitment on our website. And then we keep a track and accountability of that. But they also had to communicate that to the public and to their employees. So the employees, now 11 million employees will keep them to account. The media will keep them to account. The public will keep them to account.
Yeah.
But as we also said, this is phase one. We're building this community of 500. And yes, we've got them to do, a leadership commitment, regardless of what level we're at. Next phase, we're going to get this collective mass and put them on this change journey at leadership level and help them, whether it's with their cultures, their leadership, or their brands, or whether it's about data and research, whether it's about representation or reporting. We're going to use the collective mass of influence, and we are asking for their help, but they're asking us to help them.
Well, that's always been the biggest barrier I've seen the last sort of 5 years speaking to more businesses. It's the fear of doing it wrong. Yeah. And I think, as you said, the problem is there's a bigger risk now than ever of not doing anything. So they know they need to act, but what Valuable 500 is providing is that framework of, okay, this is how we do it. And it's a journey that we don't have to be at the final destination tomorrow, but let's make sure we're taking good steps today and tomorrow towards that.
Right, and that depends, that's no matter where you are in the journey. So the kind of beautiful part of the campaign is we like to think that instead, you're right. So historically, there has been so much negativity and bad press about things that go wrong, which is fair enough in most cases.
Yeah, totally.
This sense of fear. I mean, part of the social stigma around disability is we've been grown up to what happens if you see someone with a disability in the street. Your parents would say, don't stare, don't look. So we all live in this world now where we just don't look. And this is what we're trying to do, is help people who've got loads of other things on their plate. They're tackling climate crises and everything else. This is about making it super simple for them to take the first step, especially to transcend that fear barrier. And so we are talking to people that are starters. So the first thing they will do is think, oh gosh, I know we should be doing stuff, but I'm a bit too scared to start. So this is about saying, don't be afraid. We're going to hold your hand. You're going to do one thing. And probably that's about learning. Just learn about it. Go educate your board. Go talk about why this is so important. And so we're not asking them to kind of, I hate this phrase, but boil the ocean in the first year. It's about getting on the right track. So you've got your starters, and then you've got your scalers. So people that might have done one small thing that they feel good about, but they need to now connect the dots within their organization. And back to Gavin's question is that we're the only people focusing on CEOs, and that leadership level is so important because it's these guys that will sort out the governance models within organizations. And how many of us do we speak to amazing people who work for businesses who do this on the side of their desk? It's part of like a voluntary network thing. No, this needs to be from the top. Who's responsible at board level? Who's reporting to the CEO? What team do you need to do that? And how are you pervading the organization? And that can only happen from the top. So it's about helping them understand that and build on the networks they have to achieve this. And then lastly, it's the leaders. So if you've got the Microsofts who are smashing this, help us come together, share what you've learned, speed up the process. And the great thing about this is that we haven't had to hold anyone to account necessarily so far, because it's a group of people that get it and want to get it and want to do more. So what's so exciting about this is we've just got CEOs who are genuinely enthused and genuinely on it.
I had a conversation with somebody. This is an awful thing to admit. I know he wouldn't mind me saying this, but anyway, I had a conversation with a gentleman last Thursday, and I was rushed. Okay, so I didn't read the brief, and I just kind of presumed I was talking to, a head of the COO of, a medium-sized business. Anyway, it happened to be a CEO of a business of 400,000 people. He gave me half an hour of his time, and I genuinely mean a brilliant conversation. I had no idea what this business, I can't give you the name yet because it's due to be announced.
Sure.
But the work they are doing around disability, I never heard of them. I've never known the influence they have, considering all the employees they have. But can you imagine that CEO telling that story in front of his peers, what that would do? And so that's what the Valuable 500 is. So he's like, we just do it. And I really mean he does it. They do it right throughout their business. And I just want to come back to a stat that we used for the Valuable 500 to launch that EY did for us. It said 55% 94% of our business boards have never had a conversation about disability. So how are we going to operationalize it or normalize it? Second quote, 90% of our companies have the audacity to say they're passionate about inclusion. 4% consider disability on the sidelines. Now, when leaders hear that, leaders care and leaders do something. So, Gavin, I think the best way I could say it is, funnily, the leaders keep each other to account. They're not going to walk in a room. And our chairperson is Paul Pullman. So that's pretty cool. So when Paul writes off and says, "Hi, have you done it?" It helps. And, like we had Omnicom and Virgin Media as our strategic partners with One Young World. People don't want to let themselves down in that way.
Yeah. It's sort of the train's left the station. There's no going back now. I don't know if you caught any of yesterday's. We had Neil Crowther, who is from a much more political background, has worked at the Equality and Human Rights Commission and the Disability Rights Commission, but he was saying something that, maybe through decades and generations, activism has just changed in the strategies and the tactics, not just disability, but in all civil rights struggle. It's obvious that these things just change over time. And for all of the amazing things that the leaders did in the 70s and 80s around independent living, and we're still fighting to keep, let alone improve independent living rights and that sort of stuff. But we're just in a different world now, and the environment, the fact we've got technology and social media, like, it's just a totally different landscape.
Well, I was going to say, it's exactly with kind of, the Extinction Rebellion and eco warriors as they used to be. That's totally changed because now they're going after big business. It's big business that has to answer to that. And Caroline gets probably bored of me saying this, but I so often want to put inclusivity in with sustainability over D&I. So often disability gets linked in to D&I or lumped into D&I and then forgotten about it. So we've just launched the first global disability trend report for our 500 because you download all of these great trend reports on D&I and they've never covered disability. And it's such a complex organizational issue that it needs its own thing. So inclusivity is so much closer to sustainability, even in terms of how the campaigning and the activism has changed.
Yeah,
well, I think one worse. Do you know what we want? Is this an awful? Should I admit that what we want? Well, okay. So we kind of think diversity and inclusion as a role will disappear. We actually think that is over time, sort of like CSR got replaced with sustainability. We see that diversity and inclusion, you even hear the words called belonging starting to happen much more. We're talking about belonging and well-being. I think that, as Marianne said, I think we're going to see that going into a much thicker, meatier sustainability agenda. You start hearing this with the ESG models that business are speaking to. I think there's something really interesting happening in business. And so to your point about activism changing, it is changing and the tools are changing. And I think what I look at as an older person to both of you is your generation, you two. You're the generation and younger than you. I believe you are it. You are it. You're going to change it. You guys, not oldies like me. Who honestly, I'm sick of the sound of my own voice, but truly because I think your generation has different tools, has different expectations, and I really believe will not tolerate sort of this hierarchical identity politics inclusion. I just don't think you will.
Oh my goodness. I wish I had the confidence of like a 20-year-old because they are so set and so brilliant in terms of knowing what they deserve from roles especially. So you interview designers or strategists and they want to work on brands that have got social conscience, and they are now demanding to know what businesses are doing by way of their own sustainability and inclusivity policies. And I can't wait to see then how that then filters through to like the investors of the future. So when these guys grow up and they've got the money to throw at organizations, it's going to be, oh man, it's going to be amazing.
But I didn't have a Martin Sibley for those people who don't know me, I'm severely visually impaired and registered blind. I can't see myself on this whatever platform, but I never had a Martin when I was growing up. I never saw a Martin Sibley. I never saw somebody like you you know, out there being bloody brilliant, just being a fabulous business person, great speaker, I never saw somebody like you. So I hid my vision impairment for 11 years so I could get a job, you know. So I think you guys you're creating that change just by getting out and living your lives. And that's so important. And that's the generational difference. Because before, if you saw somebody with a disability, it was nearly like, it was very inspirational or quite unique. Do you know what I mean? And I think the only way we can normalize it is hearing all the voices.
Yeah, and I, like I say, when I got into this game, it was really looking at visual representation of disability in the media and how it's so absent. And Martin, obviously, you got the stats. Was it LBG said, Lloyds Banking Group did that Representing Modern Britain report that said that 0.06.
Yeah, 0.6 as well. Yeah.
And one of my favorite things to do is to compare disability with topics such as gender and race and sexuality, because so when we talk about disability in advertising, what will we talk about? We'll talk about Malteser's advert, which was 4 years ago. We'll talk about the Paralympics, which was 8 years ago. And if I turned around and just said, oh, but it's fine, guys, we had a woman in an advert 4 years ago. And it was
diverse-ish, right?
And it was kind of just one trope, or these three tropes that you keep seeing all the time. People would be outraged, and yet we accept it when it comes to disability, and I don't know why. But that's changing. And I think, to Caroline's point, how amazing that we're starting to see this change in people saying, this is me, and owning to it. Like, even Caroline mentioned Omnicom as one of our first strategic partners. Off the back of the Valuable 500 commitment, their amazing CMO, Sam Phillips, launched their first disability network internally. And what was interesting is seeing not only people with disabilities say, this is me, but also the carers. So I had 3 people that I'd worked with come forward and say, my child's got autism, and I've been struggling with this, and it's so hard, and it's been life-changing to have this, you know, to get it off my chest. And so it's been so interesting just to see what representation and effective voice, you know, vocalization and representation does, because it's huge, the difference it makes.
Yeah, my big reflection from that chat yesterday was you both were talking about the sort of hierarchy that goes on in other sectors and how that's therefore harder to sometimes change. But I think within the disability, I think there is a disability rights movement, but it's just that it's more people out there doing their own thing in their own industries with their own skills, and they're not necessarily, you know, chaining themselves to buses, which absolutely had to happen back in the 80s. But we're further down that road now, and there will be times, maybe, hopefully not, but probably, where some civil disobedience helps get in the room with the politicians to be heard. But I think we did that, and it's now about co-producing policies with government and business. And I think there is a movement, but it's not got the form and the appreciation that was easier to see from those political struggles.
I like to think the next wave of activism is going to be procurement. There's a sentence I never thought I'd say. I never want to say at a dinner party. That's why people move around, move away from me. But there is so much power in procurement. We'll tell you this even from this year when we looked at, so we wanted to create an app for the Valuable 500, and we had to walk away from a supplier because when we asked them about their accessibility credentials, they just didn't reply. And we tried to open up helpful, you know, gentle dialogues. It doesn't work. We've had to walk away from so many different brilliant companies because they just refuse to think about this. And you think, if every business did that, if every procurement team thought, if every creative agency would only get selected because they were able to talk about what they do around inclusivity, that's activism.
Yeah, that moves the needle a lot, doesn't it? Yeah. Cool. So a couple more coming in from the viewers. Chris is asking around how Valuable 500 is funded. He's asking if there's donations, but essentially, how is the movement funded at the moment?
Oh my, Chris, can I just say thank you for asking that question? So kind. You know what? This is the hardest thing. When I started Valuable, I remortgaged my home, which probably wasn't the best move considering everything. That's how it began. And Reid Hoffman, who is the founder of LinkedIn, he hit the first piece of financial investment down back in 2017, when the precursor to the Valuable 500, which was #valuable. And then we have made do with Omnicom gave expertise for the work around our brand, or helping us with our social media and our messaging and our creative. And really, it was Virgin Media who financially invested us. But I will say it has been very tight. It has been very difficult for the team. I mean, sometimes, I mean, I haven't been paid, and I don't know when, but there's been times when the team, we just, and you know what, I don't know, Marianne, I mean, it's been incredibly stressful. I think very hard financially, worrying about it, and, you know, doing this on a shoestring, but it's made us really creative.
I mean, yeah, we are resourceful now. It is amazing that we've been able to teach ourselves because we haven't been able to get anyone else. I can now do more in terms of email setup than I ever thought possible. But I think it's been crucial that we funded it this way, because cost is so often a barrier to these things. And we just, as Caroline says, no more excuses. No excuse. It's free to join. So it's been amazing to see the conversations people have still managed to say, no, we don't want to be involved, because there is no reason to say no. So that sponsorship has been crucial.
And we've really all of the team, there's 7 of us now, we've really all had skin in the game. I mean, I think we see this as, but can I also say that's our little team, but then we have this tribe of partners around the world, and we've several expert partners who you know and love very well, Open Inclusion and BDF and
the 18,
you know, like Access Chat, like we've got the Marketing Society, we've got brilliant friends around the world who've kind of helped us, you know, and that's been, I don't think we could have done it without them, right? We've been this tiny little team surviving on just dogged grit.
Yeah. And I think it's the hardest thing any of us have had to do, but the fact that this is still so hard, like if it was easy, it wouldn't need to be done, but it does need to be done.
Yeah, changing the world's not easy, right? But it's, in terms of, I'd imagine, like, going forward, as businesses are engaging, that should unlock funding options for Valuable, right?
Well, I see the word valuable.
Exactly.
I truly believe the community of people with disabilities have valuable insight. For so many aspects of business that should be valued.
Yeah,
we're not charity. You know, we have huge ability and potential to contribute. And I'm sorry, but we're not here to make a business be good for free. But it's not us we're talking about. It's the 1.3 billion people who are the consumers and the talent and the members of the community. They should be paying all of us for doing that work.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agree. We got a question from Nia. She said before that she didn't realize that the Fireball, as in Valuable 500 Fireball, was on the show today. So she's cleared everything to watch the interview. And then she said, is there an accountability matrix designed for businesses to measure the impact and the steps they take over the coming years?
Marianne, over to you.
There are a number of different ways that you can do this. So obviously there are the Sustainable Development Goals that have guidance around. I think inclusivity or disability relates to 6 of the different.
Is that the UN? The UN goals? Yeah.
Sustainable Development Goals. So there. If you visit the website, there are different steps that can help you there. There are also lots of different matrices that you can use. They're usually called maturity models that will help businesses understand where they are at the moment, what the status is.
That's partly, isn't it? Where knowing what is the journey and where you are on the journey, so you know where to go next.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yes, there are a number of tools that you can use, but in the next phase of the Valuable 500, Caroline, you might want to take over. But this is something that we'll be looking at as part of the Valuable 500, because measurement is so important. But what I will say is, just for now, in terms of the impact Valuable 500 can claim, because our first ambition was just to get those 500, just to get 500.
Yeah, 500, yeah.
Really, the commitments are qualitative. So we'd love to claim that all of the changes that's happened in the last year is down to us. We can't, but it's just about looking at those change indicators. But in the next phase, we will be able to help create tools that do that.
And last, on your point, because I love this question, one of the things that we have been really angry about is that a lot of the diversity and inclusion indexes or the sustainability indexes have no disability metrics in them. Seriously? End of. So one of the Valuable 500's mission in phase 2 is every single business performance, whatever, is going to have metrics on disability. Because as far as I'm concerned, you shouldn't be doing business if it's not.
Well, what do you think some of those specific to disability would be then?
Well, do you know, actually, that's a question we would love to. That is one of the things, because Tortoise is the first sustainability index that have done it that we worked with. Their first report came out on January the 14th, and their next one is coming out in June. They have asked us to ask the community about what they feel would be really good relevant metrics, because they're finding it very difficult. And when we talked to Christine Hempel, because she was being really helpful in doing it, this is going to be really difficult, and I think it's going to take us some time to work out what's to be included and not. So we are open to anybody helping us with that, because this is a really, I think this is the long game project, but I think Marianne's point is we can always start. I don't want to hear somebody saying, oh, it's so difficult that they won't do it. Yeah, it's going to be hard, but that is not a reason not to begin this. So we're very happy to take all advice.
And in terms of Neha's questions, looking at kind of how we're going to be tracking, and this kind of touches a little bit. Sorry, Martin, jumping in on what you.
No, I wasn't going to say anything. No,
But what Gavin was saying also about what are we doing in the next 6 months? One of the things that we'll be doing is tracking the progress of our own 500 organizations. So first of all, in the next 6 months, we are the Valuable 500. We need the 500. We've got 280 at the moment. So by Davos next year, we really want to have that critical mass of 500. So community building is our biggest priority.
Yeah.
As part of what we'll be doing in the next couple of months is measuring where everyone is. So as part of our first year, of those signatories we do have, we're going to be sending them a survey to measure and track what the status quo is, what they need help with, what's working well, what's not working well, and that will then determine a year-on-year measurement system.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, my eyes dart around because I'm reading all the comments coming in as well. So Sarah was saying, but I think it was about the KPIs. Ask the people who work in companies; they'll tell you what matters, which I'm sure you guys are doing already. And ask disabled customers; they'll tell you what the benchmarks need to be. I think that's echoing what you were saying, really. And Caro says, considering your goal is 500 and you have 111 days remaining, I think it's more than 111, isn't it?
So because of COVID-19, we've had to keep pushing it out because of the length of time we've had to campaign. So we need to go back to the United Nations General Assembly in September, but it's Davos now, I believe, again, Caroline.
Yeah, we decided to push it out. Mind you, we are getting companies coming in.
Yeah.
Actually, I wouldn't go as far as to say daily, but we've had 32 signups since the World Economic Forum in January. So we decided to extend it through to give it the maximum amount of time, because we will not fail. But the thing is, the companies, just so people are aware, we decided to go for the big guns. So every company that becomes Valuable 500 has to have over 1,000 employees, because we know the best practice actually is often in small to medium firms. They're the ones doing the really good stuff. It's the fellas that not so much.
And so Cara was sort of the end of the question was, how can we help support you to get more on board?
Well, first of all, we love any help sharing our news. Share it. Follow us on social. That's what most people say these days. Follow us. And help spread the word. But actually, we are looking for anyone that's got contacts into the different organizations that aren't already on our list. So we have people that are passionate who work in marketing teams, that work in different departments within businesses that want their business to be signed up. So if you know of anyone in the C-suite, or if you know of any business leaders that you think would like to join us, or if you're feeling bullish enough and you've got some contact details and you want to write off to them, we've also found that that's effective. But the one thing people can do to help us is to just help us build our community and hold more leaders to account.
Cool. Well said. Again, it's got that talking about that political movement in the 70s and 80s, even now people say, write to your MP, that sort of it, like that. But there is that vibe, isn't there? If people know of a business with more than 1,000 employees that are not signed up that ought to be, like you say, just write to them or let you know about them. And, that's how it all happens. It's bit by bit, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. But I mean, what's really interesting is seeing then how this does align to the political sphere as well. So to Sarah and Gavin's comments, you should definitely do another one looking at elections and, accessibility from a kind of voting perspective, because one of the things I thought was very, very scary on the at the time of the general election, coming back to inclusive design, is to the different manifestos on the different political parties' websites. The Conservatives was very accessible, and the others not so much. So I'd love to look at the kind of the voting landscape and the political world to see again what the inclusive design barriers are, but that's not our area.
Yeah, but there's always learnings. Back to your point about the C-suite guys that are in the community of Valuable 500 learn and help each other. And it's sort of as leaders in disability rights, there's some in business, some in politics, but the challenges and the lessons are always going to be similar. So I think, it'd be great to have a chat. I know in America they did Crip the Vote.
Yeah, great vote.
Yeah. So it'd be great to. I'll definitely talk. I know it's Sarah or Sarah. So apologies if I'm saying your name wrong, but it'd be great to get you on the show another day and talk about what you're doing in Wales on that front. But I think a lot of similarities and lessons both sides. So we're drawing near to 1 o'clock. It's flown past as it always does. What would you like to finish off saying to people? Is there anything you wanted to mention that you've not yet had a chance?
Well, I want to say one thing that I just cannot. I'm sorry if I'm going to start. I mean, I know I over talk anyway, but this I cannot say enough. We have to collaborate with each other. Look, guys, we have one chance right now, and this pandemic continues to be incredibly painful for very many reasons. But we have got to collaborate together. And one of the things, as we're looking at growing this movement, is creating this super group around the world of disability community leaders, disability business experts, and business together. Can you imagine if we worked collaboratively together, we actually could do something really historic?
Yeah.
And I do not want, for the first time in a really long time, I'm scared. You can hear it in my voice. I've been doing this for 20 years. You know why I'm scared? Because I actually think we can do this. I actually think that we can do this, and I don't want to lose the chance, and I don't want us to let each other down. I want us to grab this. No more excuses. Do it in a way that we rise the tide for everyone, because this is for everyone. It's not even just for people with disabilities. It's for everyone. And my ask is we all can find a way to be allies for each other. That is our job, to be allies for each other, regardless of how we approach it.
And just to build on that, is Fiona Jarvis asked, it's interesting that lockdown is people aware of inaccessibility, but will it last? I think it will. And I mean, if it doesn't now, it never will. I mean, how many people, irrespective of disability, are talking about the new normal? What does this mean for working from home? What does it mean for mental health? What does it mean for all of us? And now, as disabled people, we've been asking for different working adjustments for years, and they've been able to do it pretty quickly. So there are, as Caroline says, no more excuses. This is the summer of no more excuses.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Boom.
Yeah, boom. Drop the mic.
That's my diet.
Cool. Well, as always, it's a pleasure catching up and chatting around all these very important topics. I'm with you, Caroline. It feels like we are at a tipping point if we can just all keep together and just push it over that precipice. It is really moving mountains, and big thanks to both of you for all the tireless work you've done in the business world for the last however long. How long do you say is, Caroline, you've been working on
2
it?
decades, 20 years, lines on my face. But more importantly, thank you, Martin. Genuinely have been a big support of ours, and you really have. And it matters. It's meant a great deal to us. And huge congratulations on this.
Thank you.
You're brilliant.
One of those that started doing it with lockdown because I wasn't gallivanting around the country, it was easier to do. And it's just been lovely connecting with people and seeing that bird's eye view, and like how I could tell you what Neil said yesterday, and then Sarah's going to come on. It's really got a momentum on this show. So yeah, it's been another silver lining of the horribleness that is the coronavirus. But
you'll be the all-seeing eye by the end of lockdown.
What was that?
You'll be the all-seeing eye. You'll know what everyone is. We're expecting you to connect all the dots. No pressure.
No pressure, none at all. I'm going to get some lunch and get my energy back before.
Yeah.
But seriously, yeah, thanks again, everyone, for watching as well, and all your comments and questions. How can people follow you and get involved?
Usual channels. So Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. I don't tweet.
The website is thevaluable500.com.
Valuable 500.
Yeah. Valuable 500. That's us.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Good stuff. We'll wrap up. But thanks again. And I'll see all of you guys tomorrow for the next episode. And thanks again. Big virtual hugs. And yeah, see you soon, guys.
Bye, Martin. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.